Hello there. Here we're just going to finish up our study on Spanish consonants and their spellings. We're just going to look at some more spelling patterns regarding consonants in Spanish, and like I mentioned before, we're going to cover vowels over the next two videos. So let's start with the first consonant. Write out sound, spelling, and examples. The first consonant is the R sound, R, R. So let's write it out. R. With Spanish, it can be spelled with R or double R. The thing with actual Spanish is that the double R is the rolled R, the rolled R, and one R, single R, was just a normal R. But when these words have come into English, they are pronounced the same, just an R. So it's not a double, it's not a rolled R. We don't roll the R's according to the Merriam-Webster's pronunciation. So how do we figure out which one to use? First of all, R is more common, a lot more common than double R. There's not that many Spanish words that have double R anyways, so like I said before many times, it'd be in your best interest to learn the words with the double R, and then you would just be left with R. So if you ever got a word, if it was in your list of double R, you knew which one to use, you would know which one to use, and then if not, you would correctly assume it would be just an R. So there's more common is R. There's few of double R's. Like I said, this is rolled in actual Spanish, but the anglicization of all, Spanish words and any other language's words into English got rid of that, so it's the same. So let's look at some examples. One thing that could help you figure out if it's an R or double R is the English cognates, which we'll see here. First example I have is insurrecto, and when you see that, you are probably reminded of the English cognate insurrectionary, which is basically what insurrecto means. So this cognate would definitely help us figure out that there's an RR. If you recognize that, and we recognize the counterpart in English, we can be sure it's in double R. So that's one way to figure out if it's a double R or just a single R. Barrio is another example, and mirador, single R example. So you can use your cognate to figure that out if there is one present, and if not, I would suggest going with just an R because that's way more common. Okay, so that covers the R sound. The next sound is the S sound, the S sound. Now this one can be spelled with an S, C, or a Z. Okay, or a Z. Okay, so let's talk about when we're going to use each one. The S is more common of all three of these. So it's the most common one. It's more common. The thing is, the C is just going to be used if it's with an E or I after, because you can't have it with an A, O, or U because then the C would be hard and it wouldn't represent the S sound. So you would only have a C really if it's an E or an I. If not, you just have an S or a Z left as your options. So C, again, wouldn't be that common because it would just be with E and I. Z can be at the ends of words. Definitely not common, not that common. The alternate pronunciations of words can help you figure out if it's a Z or not, because a lot of the times the alternate pronunciation has the TH sound, th, and we're going to look at some examples. With a Z in it, I have Hey Race. It's a place name. This is Hey Race, and it's also pronounced Hey Wraith with a TH. So if you hear that, you know it's going to be a Z. Okay? Hey Race, Hey Wraith. Now there is Azulejo, also pronounced Azulejo, so it would give you away the Z. So the Z is pretty easy to figure out if it has an alternate pronunciation. So let me write that down too. Alternate pronunciations. Alternate pronunciation can help you if it's a TH. Otherwise, it's usually the ends of words, like alpharis or hey race. So you can figure that out if it's at the end. Most of the time, it's going to be S. Like I said, it's more common. But in figuring out if it's an S or C, the cognates can help again, as we saw here with the insurrecto. Examples I have are salada. Salada basically is a salt-covered plain in Spanish, and it comes from sal, meaning salt in Latin. It comes from sal, salt in Latin. And because Spanish comes from Latin, you're going to see a lot of Latin roots. So here you would recognize that root from the definition, and you'd be sure it's an S. It couldn't be a C anyways because there's an A, but that cognate would help you figure out it's an S. Solera is another example. It's a wine-making system, and it comes from Latin solum, meaning ground or bare. So, solum, meaning ground in Latin. Ground or bare. So that would help you figure out it's an S, because you recognize the root solum. So that's how Latin can help, because its influence on Spanish is great. So that can help you figure out if it's an S, and not necessarily an S. It could also help with the C. Rancio is an example of Spanish word with C. Rancio, see, right before the I. It comes from Latin rancid, because rancio is a word regarding a nutty flavor. So it comes from Latin rancid, which has a C. If you know rancid and you recognize that in the word rancio, you can be sure that this is a C as opposed to an S. So that's how the cognates can help in figuring out if it's an S, C, or Z. And the Z also, the alternate pronunciation, can help out with that as well. So that's that, covering R and S. Let's move on to the next consonant sound, which is cha. Cha. Let me get that after erase all of this. Okay. So, the sound is ch. And the spelling, ch. Perfect. This is a very, very, very common in Spanish, the ch. It's actually regarded as a single letter, ch, like the ll is. So very, very common in Spanish, regarded as a single letter. So you're going to see this letter combination a lot. Example is chanchito, where you see it twice. And there's a whole bunch of words where you're going to see ch. So pretty simple in Spanish. If you hear the ch, it's going to be ch. Nothing else really. Next sound is the ñ sound, which is very characteristic of Spanish. Ny, ñ, just going to be spelled with an N. Usually you're probably used to seeing the tilde up top, the little mark here, like piñata. But if you hear the ñ sound in Spanish, it's going to be an N because of that tilde. Very common sound in Spanish. Vargueño is an example. Vargueño. Okay, and like I said, there's a bunch of words that use that. Malagueña is another one. Malagueña. Just going to have that N for the ñ sound. Okay, if you ever hear the sound, you're going to use N. And that's it for that sound. Nothing else. So that's another common one. Okay, moving on to the next consonant. It's the g sound. G. G. And this is very similar to the C because G can be hard or soft. So this is going to be spelled G or GU. G or GU. Now, as you can probably guess, G is going to be with A, O, and U, because the G is going to be hard in front of these. So no need to worry about, having another letter, because the G in front of A, O, and U is going to be hard anyways. So you're going to keep it like that. GU, however, is going to be used in front of with I or E, because you couldn't use just a G because the G would be soft. As in English, same thing happens in English. So in Spanish, you're going to use a GU to represent that. So examples with just G, really, there aren't that many words with GU in Spanish. GO either. I think there was like one word. Let me write it. Agojo. which is spelled with an H-O or a J-O, so it's both. Agoho is spelled two ways. That's really the only word with the G-O. Another with an A, gazpacho. Gazpacho has the G-A. Now the G-U is going to be used with I and E. Aguinaldo is an example with G-U-I. Okay, you couldn't just use the G, it'd be aguinaldo, so you need the G-U because there's an I sound after, aguinaldo, and the G-U-E, lots of words with that. Vargueño appear and malagueña are examples. So, alright, Vargueño, G-U-E, okay, and malagueña is another one as well. So, pretty simple, G-U in front of I or E, and G in front of A, O, and U. O and U doesn't happen that often, but A does. So G in front of A and O and U if it happens, and G-U in front of I and E. So that's that regarding the G sound. There's one more thing I want to add on about the G sound. So let me erase this and then we can talk about it. Just as we saw with the K and the K, remember I said K was going to be spelled Q-U-E. Same thing here. Gay, the sound gay in Spanish is going to be spelled G-U-E, just as we saw with the K sound. So the sound, the sound is gay with long A, G, and A. The spelling is going to be G-U-E. Now remember, in Spanish, the A, here, let me make a better E. The A sound, we can already assume that it's going to be spelled with an E because that's how you spell the A sound in Spanish. It's going to be E almost all the time. So we need to use a G-U here because we couldn't use just a G. That would make the G soft. So the gay is going to be spelled G-U-E at the beginnings, at the ends. Dariengue is an example. Dariengue is an example at the end. Vargueño, which we just saw, example in the middle. So anytime you hear the G and A together to make the gay sound, you're going to have a G-U-E. Almost always. Okay, and the final consonant sound I wanted to talk about, pretty simple, is the F sound. F. And this is going to be spelled with just an F. In Spanish, don't go adding a PH. That's reserved for Greek. For Spanish, the F is going to be spelled F all the time. And example, fajita. Fajita is one example. And estofado. Estofado. Estofado is another example. And there's a whole bunch of words that uses, has the sound F, I should say. And it's spelled F. So no PH, just an F in Spanish. So that concludes the consonant sounds I wanted to cover in Spanish. One thing you should remember, let me write this as a reminder of Spanish consonants, is double letters are uncommon. Double letter or double consonants. And there are two exceptions to this. Double letters are uncommon in Spanish, except for double L, which represents the y sound. Remember, this is considered as a single letter in Spanish, so, but, in the anglicized form, they are double letters, LL. So, except for LL, this is very common, and a double R. This isn't very common, but it does happen. So it does count as common here because there are instances where it happens. Otherwise, you're not ever going to really see double letters or double consonants in Spanish. So the real double consonants you're going to see are LL and RR. Other than that, you should keep everything single, every consonant single, because Spanish is simple and that's how they spell their consonants. So the only times you're going to see double consonants are with LL and RR, and all these consonant sounds that we covered in this video and the previous video are the common consonant sounds in Spanish, and the spellings we have seen are the common ways to spell these sounds in Spanish. So that covers consonants, and we're going to move on to Spanish vowels in the next two videos. See you then!